Cool. All right. Thanks for joining the Realty One Stop Mastermind tonight. We are going to be doing our 6-month goal update. So back in December, most of us in the group had set 2023 goals, and hopefully everyone had a chance to review them or at least look at them. If you're not doing that frequently, you probably should be. I know I'm guilty of not staying on task with my goals as well as I should. So I'm going to go first just to kind of give everyone an outline as to what I am asking you to do with the goal review. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how my path has changed and some of the things that have came up over the last 6 months that have caused me to change course. And then I will we'll go from there, do a little group discussion, have everybody share and give their goals and some of their changes that they've noticed as well. So let me pull my sheet back up here. All right, so my goal was to hit 15K in gross cash flow, or I'm sorry, net cash flow after by the end of the year. So I was able to update my portfolio notes, and based on the units that I have right now renovated, I'd be at like 11.5, something like that. So I'm hoping that once all the new stuff I bought is stabilized and some of the other new apartments are stabilized and rented, that will get me closer to my goal. I do have quite a bit of vacancies right now, which is pretty unusual for me, but I've had a handful kind of all pop up at one time, and some of them needed rehab. So it's just, put a little bit of extra delay on that. I had a goal to buy 22 new doors or add about 4,400 in net cash flow. So I have bought 7 units to date, and that will get me probably about 30, maybe a little over 30% there, maybe 40, depending on how the cash flow shakes out, but certainly not all the way to my goal. But as I mentioned at the last call, part of getting to that goal isn't necessarily just buying more properties. It's also optimizing my current portfolio, raising rents. I have quite a bit of rents that have not been raised when leases expired and they went month to month. So another thing I have struggled with this year is keeping up with, years past, as before, as my portfolio slowly grew, it was much more manageable to be really, really organized. And like literally within a month or two of a lease expiring, I would be having that conversation where, is the tenant renewing? What is that number? If they don't want to renew and they want to go month to month, I usually charge a premium for that. And it really just depends on the market and what's happening. But one of my struggles this year has been trying to keep up with that now that I've scaled more. And it's something that I still handle myself, and my assistant has no involvement in, which is probably a mistake because it would probably get done had I tasked her with it. So again, these are going through my goals. It's helping me realize some of the issues in my business and in my strategy. And that's certainly one of them, because I probably have 10 apartments that need either be renewed or rent increased, and I haven't done that. Maintain 6 months of personal savings. I've been able to do that. My business goals were to time block Monday through Friday. I have been horrible about that. That's probably my biggest struggle so far this year. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I definitely find myself being pulled in sometimes 10, 15 different directions. And I feel like I'm not effectively, accomplishing any of those directions. I think Brandon Turner used to always give the analogy of like, trying to build 10 bridges at once and you never get where you're going. And this year I've definitely felt like that. So I also had a goal to make 3 short form videos a week. and one long form video per week. I had about 3 months where I was doing that pretty well, pretty consistently. I had an editor that was helping me, and I can make a million excuses as to why that hasn't been consistent. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to do it, I would. If it was a priority, I would make it happen. There's been a lot of, with the rehab and stuff going on in my house the last 4 months, there's been a lot of inconvenience that has made it really easy to put that on the back burner. And that's one of those bridges that I haven't, fully built, so to speak. So I've definitely fallen short of that. Posting on social media, same thing. I've been really, I've almost taken a break from social media. And again, that wasn't one of my goals, was not to take a break from social media. But with the way the real estate market is, it's easier, it's easier to get away from social media because the last 5-6 years, it's been a huge part of my business. And with the way the market is right now, obviously we all know real estate is relatively slow. And on the flip side, the construction business is extremely busy. And so I don't really find a whole lot of pressure to do any sort of marketing necessarily. But at the end of the day, it was one of my goals to be more consistent in posting on social media. And I bet if I wouldn't pull my business pages or even my personal pages, probably outside of like maybe a couple necessities, it's been months since I've been active on social media. So again, way off on that goal. I had a goal for 10 million in real estate sales. I was not able to pull my year-to-date numbers, but I'm confident that I'm not, at the halfway point of that. It's been, again, like we just mentioned, a relatively slow market with real estate. So I might be 3 or 4 million, something like that, but it's certainly not at the 50% mark. Not that necessarily is an issue as far as real estate goes, because real estate tends to come in bunches. So you might go 2 months without a sale, and then all of a sudden you have 3 million in 1 month, and that happens. So I think this year is going to be really difficult to hit my goal, just because of the market factors we're dealing with. But as far as year to date, I'm probably below where I need to be. And then 1 million in total construction project sales. That one is very likely to happen just because of the amount of projects I've taken on this year and the amount of projects I have scheduled for the second half of the year. So that one I probably will hit and surpass quite a bit. Personal goals: get the baby room ready by the end of June. That has not happened either. I didn't even know that. I just read that for the first time since January. But I would say it's close. We don't have a whole lot left to do there. Just like physically putting the furniture in the room, but it's already been painted. We're getting a carpet replaced next week, so it's I guess in progress at least. Other personal goals: get the first floor renovations done within budgets by end of May. Did not happen. I'm definitely way over budget, and obviously it's end of June and we're about 90% done. So I didn't hit the deadline for that either. Play with my kids 30 days per day and no screen time. That 30 minutes a day, I probably still hit, definitely on average. There's some days where I'm able to spend the whole day with them, and there's other days where I don't get to see them, but certainly 30 minutes on average or more per day. That one's no problem. No screen time, I've definitely struggled with that. I know one of my goals was to limit myself to 1 hour or less of social media per day as far as like consumption, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. There are definitely days where I do more than that. So failed on that goal. Read 1 book per night to my kids. That I do pretty consistently, not every night, but I would say, probably 80-90% of the time. So that one I feel pretty good with. And then 1 date per month with my spouse. We probably didn't do that every month. We did it. I remember we did that relatively consistently for the first like 3 or 4 months of the year. And then again, I can make a million excuses as to why it's been less than convenient. She's obviously 8+ months pregnant. And on top of that, we have a whole lot going on at the house and things, but still it was not made a priority. And then my last one is exercise 3 times or more a week for 30 minutes plus. That one I've done very well with. I mentioned to some of the guys I saw yesterday, I've been playing basketball 3 or 4 days a week. And so that's been good. and maintaining, or get to 200 pounds and maintain it. I'm probably like 205 right now, but I've been doing pretty well maintaining weight. My diet has definitely laxed, but I think that part of my motivation for exercising as hard and as often as I've been doing is just so I can eat more of what I want. And I'd rather put in the work in the gym and not have to focus as much on the strict diet. So I've kind of inversed that relationship a little bit, but I've been able to keep a pretty good balance, at least between eating more and exercising more as well. And yeah, I think that's it. So also, I know I posted that I want everybody to kind of come with maybe a big win and a big mistake or a big lesson. So I would say my biggest win for the year has been a couple things. So I've been able to keep my business consistent. When I am by business, I mean like real estate sales, consistent, even though it's a very difficult market. Every agent, every agent I know is struggling. Every agent I know is down year over year. Most agents I know are having some of the lowest years that they've been in business. So I don't feel overly, down on myself for that. I know it's a market wide issue, and so I do feel grateful and that I've been able to at least stay consistent. I'm putting some deals together. One thing that's been a good kind of win has been, and I mentioned this to some of the guys last night as well, all of my listings I've had this year, almost, I think other than maybe one or two, I immediately had a buyer ready before I even went to market. So I've been able to put together multiple dual agency type deals, meaning I represent the seller and the buyer, which in investment property, that's very common, but there's a lot of benefits to doing it that way because I don't have to worry about another agent screwing something up. I have direct access to the lender, so I have, there's a lot more work, but there's also a lot more control over deals like that. And typically when you're putting deals together like that, you already have a pretty good relationship with all parties. And so it helps smooth things out. It's not a whole lot of, bickering back and forth or, kind of ill negotiations, ill intent. It's much more seamless transaction because you kind of go knowing it, going in what to expect and who you're dealing with and how to approach it. So again, that's kind of my win probably for the year. And my biggest lesson that I mentioned briefly is I found myself a couple months ago where I had started doing a lot of the direct marketing. I know we talked about that quite a bit in this group. And I realized that I was spending a ton of money and a ton of time, and I did not have the time to commit to being successful in doing that. And so, I'm growing my portfolio. I have two, and almost a third kid on the way. I'm trying to work on some of my personal goals. I have a steady agent sales business and obviously a booming construction business. And all of those things together just did not lend itself to being successful in the, I wasn't really trying to wholesale. That wasn't really my aim. But it made it, I realized that I was throwing a lot of effort and money at a problem that I just didn't have the time or bandwidth to successfully do. So it kind of made me step back, reprioritize a little bit, focus on my goals that I had set at the beginning of the year, which was growing my portfolio, growing my net cash flow. And it's a great system, like I know we've talked about it, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I see the value in it, but I think for me to successfully implement something like that, I would need to build out a team or a partner or maybe its own company separated from my other companies where I can have somebody help me integrate that, where they have the time and the motivation and the fire to go out and actually accomplish that. And I can help them in more of a support role, whether that's financially or, training or whatever, whatever that would look like as a partnership. But it's, the benefits of it are great as far as what I want to accomplish in scaling. And I know, we've talked a lot this year about just taking the deals that come to you, the deals that make sense, and not to get too hung up on what type of asset class it is. And that is still a philosophy that I believe in the market we're in. You got to take the deals that make sense, and you got to grab them when you can get them because they're hard to find. But I'm still at the point where whether that's a condo, which I'm buying right, I just bought, or a 50-unit building, or anything in between. Whether, for me, if it was a storage facility, I've even looked at potentially buying like a car wash. I'm opening my mind to a little bit more of a scope of investing, but all real estate focused, but I'm willing to buy some different things if they make sense. But still, back to the point is that it has to make sense, and it has to, I'm not going to go out and try to put myself in a little neat box that, is like kind of a round peg in a square hole type thing, or square peg in a round hole, whatever it is. So, all of those things though are different directions. And like I said, I found myself being pulled in different directions. And when you find yourself in that position and you don't really even enjoy necessarily what you're doing, it's hard to stay motivated, and I think a big part of being successful in real estate or investing of any kind is you have to be passionate about it, because it sucks. It's hard. A lot of days it's hard. So to get up every day and try to grind and do this stuff, if you don't have a passion for it, it's going to be really, really difficult to find the motivation. And some of the people in this group were at the meeting last night, and Osh was speaking, and I think one of the questions somebody asked him that really resonated with me was like, okay, you've reached all this financial success, like what motivates you to keep going? And I feel like that's something that I struggle with constantly, because when things get hard and things get frustrating, it's like, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? What's the purpose? So I think you have to have clarity on what those reasons are. And I think that all comes back to goal setting, like we're talking about tonight. So that mostly what I wanted to cover. But yeah, back to my original point here. My biggest mistake was definitely trying to take on too many things and trying to be the one who was integrating all of those things simultaneously. And it was just impossible. Even if I would have went back to working 80 or 90 hours a week, which I have absolutely no interest in doing, I don't think I would have been successful in all of the things I was trying to do. So, I had to kind of pick and choose what I wanted to prioritize and focus on. So yeah, that's my spiel. Any questions about any of that?
Hey Joe, I got one on
Yeah.
like you were saying with your uh marketing plans with your direct mailers and everything. And you kind of, I'm paraphrasing here, you said you were kind of weren't going to wholesale, or like was that just something where you were ready, fired before you aimed, and like got over, like what looking back, like were you just trying to find some deals for your portfolio? And that, like, I was just curious, like if you expand on that. And
Yeah.
we all, I think, get that shiny object syndrome. Is that what happened, or was it you kind of lost sight of the track you were on with that? Just if you could elaborate, I was just curious.
Yeah. So to take it all the way back, let's say to the beginning of the year, right? As I just mentioned, I had that goal to buy 22 units or something. Again, I don't care what the units are. That was just a metric to measure. But 22 units to acquire $4,400 in net cash flow. That was the goal. So I guess that tells me that, I was at 10.6 or whatever at the beginning of the year. That was the estimation. So to accomplish that, I needed to scale my deal flow. What I would want to do in a perfect world is go out and buy another 20, 30, 40, 50 unit. The market right now is absolutely not giving those that make any sense. Like, I don't know any savvy investor right now buying those in our market here in Cincinnati, because they just don't make sense. It's almost impossible to make them make sense. And so that led me to, okay, well, now what? What do I do? I got some capital sitting here. I had people offering me private money. So I have access to capital, but I don't have deal flow, and I can't find deals that make sense. And I can't find deals that I want. in my niche. So that led me to, okay, well, how do I find those deals? Because finding them on the MLS was tough. I was able to buy one deal on the MLS, but I knew that if I wanted to try to reach a wider variety of opportunities, I would have to do, more direct marketing. So I did some mailers, but I mainly got into the cold texting. So I did a lot of cold texting. And funny enough, none of my deals I bought came from that. And even the wholesale deal I did a couple months ago didn't come from that. So it's funny, it's kind of funny. It's like I spent a lot of time, energy, money, and effort doing this, and I learned a lot, and I got to look at a lot of opportunities, but none of them panned out. Um, but what it made me realize was that in and of itself is a business. So I had like 200 qualified leads, meaning somebody who was at least interested in talking to me about selling. And that was off of just a couple lists I pulled in Claremont County and Hamilton County. Wasn't even like huge numbers of messages I sent out cold text. And I had 200 people who just at least wanted to speak to me, whether it would have been a good deal or a realistic number for me or anything like that. I have no idea. But I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even have the ability to follow through with conversations. And in talking about, like putting the cart before the horse a little bit, I had already went out and picked out like 3 or 4 new lists I wanted to skip trace and text. And I hadn't even got through, having follow-up conversations with the initial couple lists I pulled. So yeah, I guess to your question, it made me realize that this is a business in and of itself, doing lead generation, acquisitions, and trying to keep up with all them. But for me, like there's a lot of ways I could monetize that. So like, I could wholesale deals that don't fit what I look for. Obviously, I could find deals that I want, which was my primary motivation for starting. As an agent, obviously, if it's something that doesn't fit a wholesale or a purchase, I could potentially list a property for them if I get to have that conversation and it's a good fit as a listing agent. So there's a lot of ways to monetize those leads. But again, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're having meaningful conversations with 200 people a week, it's a lot. I mean, I couldn't do any of the other stuff I was doing. So like my current clients would suffer for that. My construction clients would suffer for that. My employees are suffering for that. My family's suffering for that. So it's like I just knew as I have it set up, it would not work. It just didn't make sense. Hopefully that answers
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah, no, it makes
Uh,
sense. Just kind of don't realize the back end and all the other work that you were gonna have to deal with. Yeah, so it totally makes sense.
Not to get too off on a tangent on the whole wholesaling thing, but I had the same. It's funny that you're bringing it all up because I had the same realization, and I realized that it's a business in itself. So I've actually found a friend who, luckily, has a lot of free time during the summer. He's a teacher, and he's hungry. So I'm working on building that arm into my LLC, having a wholesaling branch. So I'm just curious about what your kind, if you don't mind talking about what your strategy looked like. Because right now what I'm working on with him, like I had him buy the Bigger Pockets wholesaling book, basically the basics of wholesaling. Um, but we've debated on should I pay for him to go to the Tommy Har, like the different training things that you can go to or whatever. But if you have a good system, I'd love to hear more about it. And
Yeah,
maybe in a different call or something.
yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I want everybody to have a chance to present. But what I'll say is that the basics of wholesaling, to me, the philosophy of it is you have to be able to solve a problem for the seller. That is, if you understand that fundamental principle, you can make any deal happen that's possible to make happen. So all we're talking about with marketing is getting in front of that person. That's all you're trying to do.
Yeah,
So
I'm really interested in just how you're getting the leads and then how you're getting a hold of them. So you're like you said you're pulling lists.
yeah, just real quick, I use PropStream to pull list. And I would do for me personally, I look for tired landlords, meaning people that have held properties for 20, 30 plus years. That was one of the big ones I went after. And I also went after what would potentially be like distressed single families. Because again, you guys know everything I buy is pretty much deep value add. So that's what I look for, the properties that needed a lot of rehab. And I looked in areas that I wanted to buy in. So, Eastern Hamilton County, most of Claremont County. And the only time I do direct mail is if I'm writing either a handwritten or like what looks like a handwritten typed letter to a specific address, meaning like I know I want to buy Susie's house on the corner, so I'm going to send her a handwritten letter. That's the only time I do that. I don't do any other. I don't do mass direct mail at all. And then so for me it was all cold texting. So I would pull my list, I'd skip trace, get their cell phone number, and then I would send out batch messaging using that launch control app that we talked about on the other calls. So yeah, that was it. And Dylan Koch was the one that really helped me with that system. And he has a lot of other systems he uses that I didn't use. You know, he has a lot more sophisticated like CRM programs set up, which is a huge aspect, especially if you actually want to wholesale. So he'd be a really good one to talk to about that stuff. But yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, you're just trying to get a conversation with them. And a big part of being successful in anything in real estate, especially if you're buying off market, you have to be a good communicator, and you have to genuinely want to help their problem. Because if all you're doing is trying to make money for yourself, or take their property and try to get it at some like crazy discount just, you know, for your own advantage, people are going to see through that. You know, like the couple wholesale deals I've done, I was very honest with these people. I said, look, this is what it's worth. This is probably what I can sell it for. This is what I have to make if I'm, you know, for me to put my time into doing this for you. And I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but I'm willing to do my best, you know, and they trusted me and I made it happen and it all worked out. But like, you know, I think there's a lot of wholesalers that are not genuine, and people can see through that. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, we could obviously have a whole call about that, and that's probably a good thing to do here in the future. But anyway, so I don't want to take any more time. DJ, if you want to lead off next, run through your goals and you know, how you've had to transition them.
Yep. All right. So from a business side, my first goal was to continue to lead in my W-2 and push, and I'm doing that. I actually got a message from my boss that hopefully I've got some good news coming this week. So maybe on the next one I'll update on that. But push put 5% of my W-2 into passive and 5% into active investments around real estate. I'll continue to do that. Double my portfolio and cash flow, and then in the same breath complete a purchase of a small to mid-size apartment with a partnership. We, you know, you guys all know the what I'm working through right now, and we got the appraisal back today, so, and it came in good, so hopefully we're on track for that one, and I'm very excited. You know, continue networking. You know, last night was just kind of, you know, it's fresh, everybody who was at the meetup and then out after the meetup. I mean, that reinvigorates me every month. I mean, you know, that to me is what keeps you from getting stale and keeps you, you know, pushing to do this. So that was very awesome, other than the fact I'm dragging butt today. So because yeah, I was up at 4:40 this morning and worked out. So it's been a long day. So on the same track of you with social media, Joe, I have, when I was doing 75 hard earlier this year, I was doing really good posting, and I have gone silent since. I actually am starting 20 hard tomorrow because I have 20 days until we go to Aruba. So I set that goal, but so we're gonna do that for the next 20 days. Educate, read, masterminds, you know, all of that's rolling along. I mean, I think, you know, that's kind of the gist of the business side. From a personal side, I am trying to get better at goal setting. That was one that I actually added during the goal setting thing in January, because I'm not good at it. But be more fiscally responsible. So just, you know, calculate and track my net worth. So I did that in January. I calculated everything. I've been updating it quarterly. So which is kind of eye-opening, honestly. And then I, you know, kind of with what Ash was saying last night, I'm I'm going to try to figure out what that number is and do more calculations on that. Complete 75 hard. I completed that in February. I'm gonna do the next 20 days, and then once we get back from Aruba, I think I'm gonna do it again. So get back on track with that. Be more bendy. I haven't been doing the stretch lab stuff, but I have been, like, I actually have stretching incorporated into my daily workouts and stuff. I read Miracle Morning a month or so ago, so I've implemented that. So I've been doing that in the mornings more than I've been exercising. So I need to figure out how to get the 45-minute exercise back in. So challenge around that. But take kids on 5 major experience trips. We just got back from a Jeep trip last week. It was my youngest's first, so that was awesome. And then we're headed to Aruba here in 20 days. So that'll be number 4 where Aruba will be. So, well, I think we're gonna do some go west on some of the flyover states. I want to do that before the end of the year. So implement date night with the wife. We've had a few, just she's busy with work and kid stuff, and same deal here, so it's hard, and we fit them in when we can. The teaching the kids entrepreneurship, I found that it's actually helping me and keeping me motivated in that as well. So they've had a couple of summer camps, and actually the first one, they came home, the first subject on the first day was entrepreneurship. So they were, it's kind of neat to have not just me pushing stuff like that down their throat. So it was good. Read 20 books. I just started book number 13, so doing good on that. After Osh last night, I'm rereading Rocket Fuel. So and then I think, as far as big wins, I'm the networking has led to the opportunity to purchase this apartment. And so I think that, just the networking and connections I've made, that's a big win. I'm, the entrepreneurship side, I'm actually looking at just trying to figure out like high side hustles, not even vertical integration, just like other stuff to do. So just, get my kids involved and stuff like that. And then just getting, all the stuff that I'm not doing well, that's kind of, I want to get that, in mind. So I'm hoping, I'm not, for being in tech, I'm not good at social media. And so that's probably my biggest thing I need to work on the rest of the year.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and one thing that, I just want to remind everybody about, and I'm guilty of this as well. It's like, I don't remember who said it, but I heard somebody say it on the podcast years ago. And it's like, you don't have to wait till January 1st to reset, get remotivated, start new habits. Like, you can pick any day, any week, any month, any time to set new goals, transition goals, start doing the things you're not doing, and get on a more efficient path to try to achieve those goals. And again, that's something I have to remind myself of constantly. So, I'm glad we're having this call, because it's forced me to think about some of these things, make me take an honest look and accountability at some of the things I'm lacking in, things I'm not delivering in, and forcing myself to, kind of realign with what I want to accomplish and make me set daily habits to achieve those things. So no, it's, I think we're all probably guilty of it. And it's, no time like the present to reset that.
Absolutely.
Todd?
Yeah, my first thing was I was in the midst of beginning the decision to get my license, and got that done, which was great. And then after that, my goal was 2 million in sales. today I had my first appointment. So we're a long way from that. But um, kind of like Joe, going back to what you said, being pulled in different directions. The other thing I think we sometimes need to remember is life is so fluid and you never know what's going to happen. And I had to move my mom. Well, my mom moved up to Cincinnati and sold her house in Pittsburgh, and that took a lot of time. And then my dad just turned 82, so he needs a lot of help. So I'm constantly running here, there, everywhere. And then, I have a 9-year-old daughter, my wife. So, that became a juggling act, not a negative one, but that pulls you. And that was kind of unexpected and took away from the focus of getting up and running. But I just need to remember not only the investing but the agent game. It's long term. I feel like sometimes we all want to move at lightning speed, but sometimes you just can't, through no fault of your own. But the license was the big one. Still going to try to knock it out even in this market, and just baby steps there. I know physical health, that's one that I absolutely failed at. I remember DJ let off with his hard, was it hard six? I can't even remember. DJ was it hard 60.
Hard.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. When you let off the initial goals with that, and then but yeah, I just that I need to refocus on, because how can you help others when you can't help yourself, and health's more important. So that's the biggie. But the other thing I think I did a decent job of was looking at scouting areas in terms of my next investment, personally, and then also areas that I want to market to as an agent. So I think I've done a good job with that. I just haven't progressed as quickly on those topics as I wanted to originally, because life threw me a couple curveballs, not excuses, but just kind of a recognition that you just have to adapt and move on. So yeah, but the main thing I'm glad is I made the decision. I think I mentioned before, Dylan was one that gave me a kick in the butt when I was talking with him, that helped me get moving, and just glad I'm moving forward with that. And so trying to learn that whole universe and making baby steps. So yeah.
Yeah, man. And it's obviously you came into the real estate sales market at a really tough time. And all I can really say is to not give it up, keep pushing. And my first couple of years, I didn't do very many deals either. I mean, that's normal, even in a good, and I was in a way better market, more balanced market. So my one tip of advice for that would be spend this time now. And this is something that I'm not doing. So this is why it's so fresh on my mind that, you absolutely should be, and I should be, but spend this downtime in the market where you're not doing a lot of appointments. You're not out listing, a ton of houses, open houses. Spend that time building relationships with people, because the relationships you build as an agent will pay off, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. And when you're able to do that in a genuine and organic way and not a sales pitchy, like here, let's put it this way. If you're a good agent and you're good at marketing, you're going to be marketing to people and they have no idea you're marketing to people. And it's just about genuinely building relationships, talking to people you went to high school with, talking to a distant family, talking to neighbors, whatever that, whatever your sphere is that you want to,
Yeah.
that like you just said, you're defining that's going to be your area of focus, whether that's physically a location or just a relationship, relationship space. Obviously social media is probably the easiest and most powerful way to do that. But it could be just, calling people up you haven't talked to in a while, texting people. And I'm sure, hopefully your broker and the agents you're working with are telling you all these things and helping you do that as well. But it's the reason why I'm making a point to say it is because it's so important right now while you have all this extra free time, because a day will come, if you stick with it, where you're so busy selling real estate that you don't have time to market, you don't have time to talk to people, you don't have time to foster relationships. So spend that time wisely now.
No, I appreciate that. And that's what I'm doing. I was surprised by the response when a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's awesome, And I should shout out Eric Gross too. I know he's jumped on here a couple times with us, and he's been awesome too, and helping me out and answering questions when I was debating and once I got into it. So shout out to Eric as well. So
Yeah, he's a great dude. And thank you, by the way, for the referral on the is it Michael? Am I saying that right?
yeah, she goes by Mickey. Yeah,
Mickey?
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
She
Mickey.
she followed up. That's great, man. She's
Yeah.
awesome. So
we're gonna be
great.
working on her house here soon. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, Joe. Yeah, congratulations, and I appreciate you. I know because I knew you wouldn't let her down. So I was like, he's a solid dude. So that's great. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Angela.
Yep. So, all right. So I think one of my first goal was to purchase 4 doors, and obviously I was able to find the duplex that I'm house hacking right now, right? And that was also my biggest win, right? Actually getting started, officially becoming a real estate investor, right? So, and then of course, as part of the lessons learned, also with the overthinking and stressing over little things and really overcoming some of those fears as we took action and actually closed on the deal and all of that. And then I would also say that really one thing that I have to work on is delegating and contracting some of these jobs out. I don't know, I guess I'm too much of a perfectionist. And that's always been one of my fears when I contract things out, right? I can always find something wrong with their work, okay? But that's just me being a perfectionist. And a couple of weeks ago, we subcontract or contracted out our flooring job, and that worked out really, really well. And of course, there's 100 other projects that we are working on, but I'm slowly offloading some of that load, right? And delegating and really being able to focus on other things where I can be more productive. And then the other one was the cash flow. I had it at $800 a month after all of my fixed expenses. And I'm at 560 right now after 15% for like CapEx and maintenance and all of that. So I'm doing really well with that. Um, so really, once I get at least the other 2 doors that I want to get this year, I should be able to achieve that goal pretty easily, I think. It really comes down to finding something that makes sense, right? And that's obviously what all of us are struggling with, finding something that makes sense, but it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time, right? Um, from a savings standpoint, the other one that I had was saving at least 36K. That's going really well. Right now I'm on track. Probably I'm gonna end up closer to 45, which is pretty awesome. Again, that's really gonna help me fund future deals, right? And then the one that I'm not doing very well with is the reading. I said that I want to read one book per month, and I'm only at 4. So I'm a couple of books behind. And honestly, it's just time, right? I've been just doing so much work myself that I've just, you know, don't have time to read that much. But again, trying to find opportunities where I can have other people do that kind of work for me, right? So then I can do some of the other things that I enjoy doing as well. Um, from a networking standpoint, I mean, you guys know that I've been pretty consistent with as well as you guys with the meetups and the networks, and maybe we've been. I this morning I was thinking maybe we've been networking too much, right? But I mean, all joking aside, though, the networking is always a lot of fun. Like DJ said or Todd said, I find it re-energizing every time that we spend time together and we get a chance to to chat and have a good time. I did miss a couple of meetups. I really wanted to attend all of the meetups. I missed one best ever a few months ago, and then I missed the bigger pockets one. I really wanted to attend all of them, but it is what it is. And then one that I had not really planned on, but was growing my social media presence, and I had been doing that for a little while. I know you guys know the stories and all that. Past couple of weeks, I've been struggling with that. I've just been so busy working on some other things and getting my house in Florence, up to snuff because I got my tenants moving in this Saturday. Um, One thing that I should have probably contracted out was the cleaning, right? We've spent days cleaning that place up, right? So that I can probably be a lot more productive doing some other things other than cleaning. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now with the goals that I came up with, and then of course on the personal side of things, just like you guys, the working out, I've been pretty consistent with that, and I've been getting a lot more into running versus weightlifting. And typically I try to do, about 3 miles every other day. And I've been pretty consistent with that. And then the stretching DJ, I've also been spending some time and doing my own version of yoga in the mornings. That's been pretty helpful too, and kind of going back between the yoga and the meditating side of things, trying to combine those and trying to spend a little more time doing that. And I think that's really helped me out with stress levels. Yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing, Gage.
All right, let's talk about some goals. Freaking love the goals. I remember, it's funny. I went and rewatched the YouTube video from 6 months ago, and I wanted to make sure I knew what my goals were. But it's just funny, like looking back, it's like, wow, that was 6 months ago. And me personally, I know that I already sit here and look at that dude from 6 months ago, and I'm like, man, he didn't know anything. And I'm glad you record these, because I'm sure when I go back and look at this guy right here, I'm gonna say, man, that kid didn't know anything. But to get on with it, what I said in that video back then, my goal was, had a couple, getting my duplex rented, which I did, getting my upper unit rehabbed, which I did, purchase another investment property in Q2, using a cash out refinance, I did. So I hit all the goals from that video, or from that meeting, except for one, which is get on Survivor and win. That one I haven't quite got yet, but I'm still working on it. I'm still getting there. So one thing I do with goals, because I love them, and one thing I did want to hit on during this is, I remember the last time we talked about it, and Joe, you have touched on it a few times, and I do believe in this, but also I do have conflicting thoughts on it too. When it comes to your why, a lot of people are like, you need to have that why, and to me, it's like, sometimes I struggle with coming up with that why. Sometimes it's like, man, am I just coming up with this to feel good? Right now, I know in the future, I think that I will be happy with the things I'm doing, because it will allow me to provide for my future family. And that's what I said my why is a couple times. And it is at the end of the day. But I also think that my why is just the goal that I set. My goal is my why. I find fulfillment from hitting my goal. The goal is what causes me to take the action. And that's what I found. So that's, at this point in my life, that's kind of why I set goals, is because then it allows me to go out there and get after it and do the things. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to hit as many of the things in life as I can to fill out my full potential. And that's really what I'm just going for. So one of the things that I do in terms of goals is, at the beginning of the year, I wrote down my year goals, everything I wanted to do for the year of 2023. And so far, I think I wrote down maybe 20 things. I think I've hit half of them, but I realized as I was doing it that I need to do this every month. So I've done it every month, and it's allowed me to go back and check these things off. But it allows me to refresh my goals throughout the year, and to continue to expound upon them and create new ones. Like one goal that I didn't have back in January that I have now is to climb Kilimanjaro, which I'll be doing next month. But I have this in here, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Is I write down at the beginning of every month, either on the first or the second, around the beginning, is a goal wrote down is 42% more likely to happen than one that is a passing thought. I will write my 2023 goals at the beginning of each month, and then I write my goals, and then I go back and I look at them every month, a couple times a week, to make sure that I'm hitting them. But since I started doing that, it's really aligned my focus to allow me to do it. Because it allows me to implement the daily habits I need to do to hit that monthly goal, which then allows me to hit my overall goals. So going forward, my goals right now are to, I try to read 3+ books a month. I want to hit 60. I am slacking on that. I need to get to reading more, but I think on that 40-hour plane ride there and back, I'll be able to knock some books out to Africa. So that's what my plan is. I take 3 Spanish lessons with a professor a week or a month. And do a certain amount of sales for my top sale hemp business. But I do this every month. So I guess some of my bigger goals for the rest of the year would be to expand my portfolio. I'd love to do an off-market deal. Just to expand the amount and the types of deals I'm doing. I'd love to do a creative finance deal. And then I also have a question attached to this one. I want to do an FHA deal. But I was just recently told by a lender that in order to do an FHA, say you move into one, say it's a 4-unit, you move into one of the units, the other 3 units have to cover the mortgage. I heard that that's a requirement. I don't know if that's a fact. I don't know if this guy was just drunk on the river, but that's where I talked to him about it. But I was under the impression after speaking with him that in order to qualify for a bank, your 3 units have to cover your mortgage cost.
No. So with an FHA loan, owner occupied, if you're moving in the property, they can use the income from the property to help you qualify for the loan, but it doesn't have to. If you are able to qualify without the income from the property, it's completely irrelevant to how much the income is when you buy it.
Perfect.
But it can't. But the nice thing about FHA is that it can be used as qualified income to help you qualify. So I know people who like really mastered that system, especially like 5-10 years ago, where they were like every time they buy a new 1 to 4 unit property, they'd move in, get a 3.5% down FHA, and because they were buying, they were becoming more borrowable every time they would do it. So anyway, yeah, no, you can definitely still do that.
Okay, good to know. For a major win, is just hitting the majority of my goals, keeping them top of mind, and being able to punch them out. Just being disciplined on that and setting goals. I think setting goals allows me to hit more goals because as you hit them, you just get more consistent. Another thing that I did was I was posting for I have a hemp business that I sell gummies and all kinds of different stuff. It's called Top Sale Brands. If anyone wants to check it out, we have some good stuff. We were posting 16 times a day on social media across all of our social media platforms. And you touched on this, Joe. I think everybody's kind of touched on this. Is like when you have a pain point or when you have something that's taking up a lot of time, sometimes it's good to just let it go and find somebody to do it for you. So we were able to hire an intern for the summer for social media, and she is now doing all of that for us. It was tough at first, Angela. Like, I understand, dude. Like, letting go and letting someone else do something that you usually would be responsible for because you're a perfectionist. I feel that. But she's done a great job. She has her own type of way she posts things, but she's younger. and she understands social media better than I do. I've actually been able to I've erased Instagram. I don't have a TikTok. Like, I've been able to get rid of that off my phone, which is nice, and just kind of completely detach from it, which I think is somewhat healthy for me, and allows me to spend my time on better things. So that's been great. One thing that like I've been having this reoccur as a lesson too for me, and Osh kind of touched on it, is you're really only limited by your mindset and by how you perceive things, your perception of things. And so that's just something that's been big for me too, is like, seeing, like, Joe, you're like a big motivation for me because I see all the things that you're doing and I'm like, well, somebody's doing it, so that means it's possible. And just getting around, I asked him yesterday if there was a book that opened mindset, and he said he didn't have one, but the advice he gave was it's 10 times more motivating if you put yourself in a room with people who are doing the things you want to do, and having those mindsets. And so I really identify with that, and I really appreciate this whole group, and all you guys that come here and help grow my mindset and have helped me. And I can say that a lot of you are the reason why I can look back at that dude from 6 months ago and say he knew nothing, because I've absorbed from all y'all. So I'm really just happy about being in here. Really have a lot of gratitude for everyone here, and thank you, Joe, for starting it. And I'll end with my biggest mistake, which is take advantage of economies of scale. As you all know, I bought a single family after I had already bought a duplex, so I kind of like went backwards in terms of moving up. And going forward, I probably will do mostly bigger investments going forward, because I know that the economies of scale will allow me to grow faster, and just take advantage of that. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Awesome. Yeah. And I made a couple of notes on some of the things you talked about I want to touch on. So so you talk about how you look back at yourself 6 months ago and realize you knew nothing. And I think that was, obviously really cool to appreciate how much you learned. And I look at like real estate or investing, or anytime you learn you take on a big leap into something you're unfamiliar with. It's like being a child all again, right? I mean, if anyone here has kids, you see when they're babies and they start learning and then they're toddlers, it's like every 6 months they're a totally different person. And so it kind of made me think of that. And I think back to myself, 7, 8, 9 years ago when I first started educating myself in real estate. And like you said, it was like every 6 months I had a completely different understanding. And obviously that tapers off to an extent. You're not going to have that accelerated growth forever, because eventually you do become comfortable with a lot of different concepts. And then it's more of like staying up to date on the rapidly changing environment that real estate is. But still, you probably have quite a bit of runway where you'll see that growth, and that's really cool that you could appreciate that. But one thing I wanted to touch on is the something I struggle with is I feel like I have a ebb and flow of like confidence, and and Ash talked about this yesterday. It made me think of it again. And I've heard it called different things, and I've heard people say like imposter syndrome, meaning like you don't believe in yourself that the things that are happening in your life you should happen, or that the things you want to accomplish should be possible for you. Or like I've even heard like people call it like a negative internal dialogue. And I think that's something that I struggle with. And what made, and you talking about that, I see every time you speak, I see that just kind of raw passion for real estate and all the things you want to accomplish. And I remember being more like that. And then now I feel like I'm starting to become like that just grizzled old man that like, it has more of a negative outlook. And sometimes, as you grow in business, just the more things you do and the more time you spend, you're going to have good and bad things happen. But it's easy to become overly focused on the negative things. And I think that allows us to have that negative internal dialogue happen, and I know part of why I'm not as active on social media is because there are times where I sit back and I'm like, am I just doing this because I'm a narcissist and I just want to hear myself talk? And like, no, and I tell myself, like, no one gives a shit about what you're talking about, and it's like you're, and I don't know if like I really believe that ever, but it's like it's easy to tell yourself that, and then now you have an excuse for why you don't need to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said in the beginning, like, I could give 50 reasons why I'm not posting, 3 or 4 times a week on social media or making videos that I know I probably should be, that would be, helpful for all of the things I'm trying to accomplish. But it's really easy to say like, oh, well, you don't really know what you're talking about. Like, you might sound like you know what you're talking about, but deep down you don't know what you're talking about, and it's easy to like let yourself convince yourself of that. And it's just a confidence issue. And I know Ash mentioned it, and when he was talking about raising money, and it's totally true. I mean, I didn't raise money for years and years either. I had people literally calling me and saying, hey, I got X amount of dollars. Hey, I got this. Hey, I got that. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm doing these duplexes and I'm happy with it. And that's the type of deal I like to do. Like, Ash mentioned that. Like, that was another thing I would tell myself. It's like, I just like doing duplexes, but really that was my comfort zone. I didn't have to take anyone else's money, and I wasn't confident enough that I could take someone else's money and make them money with my expertise, right? And these are all just examples of things that we subconsciously tell ourselves that hold us back. But anyway, just all the things you said really, really made me think of that again. All right, and last but not least, John, if you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. I got to get a webcam from my desktop.
No problem.
I wasn't on the call 6 months ago, so there's no recording me saying
Okay.
stupid shit. But yeah, I set a goal for myself to really stop reading books on real estate investing and actually take action. So started off with this syndication. I just felt like I didn't know what to do. These guys approached me. I vetted them. I went to their properties, out in Dallas when I was there, and I pulled the trigger on that one. Now I'm working on my first, duplex on my own, and hopefully do another one in a year. So I plan to do at least 2 real estate transactions this year, hopefully 3, maybe even 4. Just give them a shot. So anything I've been afraid to do in the past, I want to do this year, such as real estate. Started going to jujitsu. I'm even starting to get cauliflower ear. Just everything that I was like kind of scared to do, just started doing now. As far as like job and like personal goals and whatnot, sometimes I'm in this constant dilemma of like, what good is it to make you know decent money if you don't like what you do? I do phone sales, health insurance. I do a lot of cold calling. 2 years ago, I made it to like the top 7 insurance agents in the country, maybe even the top 1%. Last year was pretty good too, but business is falling off because I don't have any referral partners and just the way that business is up and down. But I don't enjoy cold calling people and getting screamed at every day. And my whole goal is to kind of transition out into another business, start something else that I actually enjoy doing, because I'm one of those people, I will never be like amazing at something and continue to do it if I don't love it. Like I have, or at least like it. Like I like real estate investing. I enjoy learning about it. It's a way for the future. Like I watch all the idiots that I work with. There's probably about 50 people going out and buying Porsches, but buying like 8,000 a month mortgage, 10,000 a month mortgage, then business. And then they're complaining to me, John, I can't pay my payment for my car, my house. I've socked away almost, not every dollar. I still live, decent, but I've socked away a majority of the money. I drive a 2007 car, like whatever, just to save money in order to do this, because I see older people, 40 and 50 years old, like, oh, I wish I had invested in real estate, but yet they're spending all their insurance money to buy Mercedes and stupid stuff like that. We know this happens with everybody, but it's super prevalent at my job. If you went through the parking lot, you would be like, oh my God, you guys are all self-employed and leveraged to the max with boats, cars, houses, all this crap. And then, 20, 30 years, you're going to have nothing to show for it. So that's one thing that I've been totally avoiding. I see it all around me. And now everyone's like, oh my God, you're looking at real estate. How can I get involved? but they don't have the savings account anymore because they spent it on all stupid stuff. But that's one thing that I've been working on, just kind of saving, everything and making smart decisions. And, from here, close on a few properties this year and hopefully get a new business where I'm in charge of the business and I can start it, from the ground up. And I really like to do like an online business or whatnot, grow it and plow all that money into real estate, like some of the people in the other forums I'm involved in, like basically get explosive income and then buy real estate with it rather than me going back to a traditional W-2 like I did years ago and get paid, 50, 60 grand and trying to save as much as possible. Not that that's for me. But yeah, that's I'm gonna go here, do more deals. I know it's a tough market right now. Not much is cash flowing, but I know in 20, 30 years, if we all keep doing this, we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think that it's and one thing I had a note to mention, and John just touched on it as well, is like there's a lot of different motivations, and I know Gage mentioned that like he's motivated by achieving the success of his own goals he sets, and that is a big why for him, is because he feels the the dopamine of accomplishing goals, and I think we all do that to an extent. I know for me, seeing part of why I love doing like really heavy rehabs is I love seeing like the worst, crappiest house in the neighborhood go to one of the nicest houses. That is a big dopamine hit. I get an adrenaline rush off of that success, and that can be motivating. And there's a lot of different types of motivation, right? There's positive motivation. There's negative motivation like John had, where and I had a similar thing with my job, where I was I knew I didn't want to do it forever. I didn't hate it, but I had enough negative fear of staying in where I was that it made me want to move to somewhere else. And when you have that fear, it can be a big motivating factor. And the last thing I'll add to that point is that one thing I struggle with, and I've talked about it in this group, is that once you hit financial freedom, it becomes increasingly difficult to find motivation. I constantly find myself doing stuff I don't want to do, and then asking myself, well, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I have enough money to pay my bills. I don't necessarily need to keep stretching my lifestyle over and over and over and over. I don't need sports cars or things like that. I don't necessarily have to get vacation home. That is one of my long-term goals, but I don't have to do that. If it makes me miserable to try to push myself to that point. But one thing I'll say is that, and John made me think of it when he mentioned, the guys he works with blowing every dollar they make as soon as they make it, in one hand and out the other, is that if you're able to do that through investing, that's the way to do that if that's your goal, right? If you do have like material goals, then have the discipline to make the money, save the money, invest the money, and let your investments pay for those things where you can actually enjoy them and you still have some freedom and flexibility. And so there is I guess some benefit of extending your lifestyle, right? I probably could have retired 2 or 3 years ago if I would have stayed living off of $3,000 a month, for my entire family's expenses. But that's not necessarily a lifestyle that was comfortable for our family, and that, is where you want to be for the rest of your life, right? And so within reason, if you're doing it intelligently, I think there are ways that literally increasing your expenses can help motivate you to want to increase your income and increase your investments. And so, and I know Kiyosaki talked about it a ton in Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's like, all of my money I play with is funded through investments, and that's how I'm able to, have a luxury lifestyle without having to pay for it, through earned income and not having any savings. So hopefully all of us will get to those goals at some point, but I don't think it's wrong to have material goals. I know a lot of real estate circles are like, oh, money doesn't matter. Money means nothing. You should never have a goal about money. But I think you also have to be realistic. It's like, when you picture your lifestyle and where you want to be, money is a means to achieve that. And that's certainly a factor for why all of us are here and why all of us are in these mastermind groups and the meetup groups, because to achieve our goals, unfortunately, the society we live in, the times we live in, they require capital to do that. So, you know, don't be afraid of looking at it through that lens. Don't feel guilty about that aspect of it. You know, and I think that's a complex topic, and it's a personal topic. You know, it's a personal perspective. I'm not the type of person that, you know, wants to go out and buy a Rolex to say I have a Rolex, but some people are motivated by that. And I don't judge people for that, because if that, you know, if having material things like that makes them happy, then I think that, you know, that's part of being an American, that you have the freedom and the right to spend your money how you choose and be motivated by things that motivate you. And for some people that is what it is. And I don't necessarily look at that as like a negative, you know, vain thing. And I think a lot of investors try to tell themselves, you know, that we're, all of the reasons we do this are altruistic, and none of us have any greed, and none of us have any personal or material goals. And I don't think that's honest. You know, I don't think that's an honest view. And I know a lot of groups that if you were to say that, you'd probably be, you know, judged for feeling that way. But I don't know. Like I said, I think that that's a realistic viewpoint. But anyway, awesome conversation today, guys. I appreciate everyone getting their goals together on short notice. I'm still putting my office back together, so hopefully by next time I'll be totally up and running. And I literally was setting up my camera about an hour ago, so hopefully I'll be back on the horse, full gear. Any other questions, comments anyone wants to add about things we talked about tonight?
I'll reiterate, I appreciate all you guys. I mean, this
Yeah.
thing is awesome. I appreciate the mastermind and all the networking. So
Yeah, and thank you, Gage. That was touching, and I appreciate it. It you know, this is a pretty low maintenance thing, and I'm glad that we've been able to get this core group of people that, you know, we have, you know, 5 to 10 core people that come almost every week, and I appreciate you guys putting the time in, and hopefully you guys are getting you know, the value out of that, and the accountability out of it. And like I always say, you know, if there's anything you guys, I'm here to meet people and network and learn and help myself accountable. But obviously one of my primary goals is to help add value to all of you guys on your journey and help you guys get to wherever you're trying to go. So if there's anything that you guys think of that you want to learn more about, talk about, feel free to let me know. Don't be shy. I know I say that every time, but I feel like a lot of people don't want to, you know, come to me one-on-one and say like, hey man, I really want to learn about XYZ. Can you make that happen? And like, that's what I want. I want you guys to come to me and say that. And I'm happy to make that happen, because I probably have a contact, or somebody in this group has a contact, that if whatever the resource is that we need to bring into the group, we can make that happen. So, you know, genuinely don't be shy. And that's what makes these conversations meaningful. So
Cool. Yeah,
awesome, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
100%.
All right, guys.
Next
Thank
call's
you,
on the
guys.
12th. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All right.
awesome. Thanks
Take
all.
care.
Take care, guys.
See ya.